was actually a double agent.
Top Israelis told us, Marwan gave us the best information we have ever gotten from anyone.
How you build the confidence in one of the best intelligence services in the world. You give them the best information that serve your purpose.
The Egyptians' purpose was to recapture the Suez Canal and all or part of the 23,000 square miles of the Sinai Peninsula occupied by the Israelis. To do it, they needed to deceive their enemy at a crucial moment, and according to Dr. Saeed, Marwan was the key element in that deception.
The Israelis know that there was Egyptians and Syrians on the ground mobilizing their forces. These forces already in the front. They are taking offensive positions. It's a classic case in the books. You got all the information, but you make the wrong interpretation. And the only variable that is different was Ashraf Marwan.
We were subjugated to this source, and we put aside information from the observation posts. We were dependent on him to give us the last verdict, the last confirmation.
Marwan finally provided that confirmation at a late-night meeting in London with the head of Mossad, just 12 hours before the fighting began. The Syrians and the Egyptians would attack on two fronts, he said, at 6 p.m. the following day, the holiest day of the Jewish year. The Israelis were totally unprepared. Most of their soldiers were already home with their families. But General Farkash doesn't blame Marwan. He's convinced that the plans were so secret, Marwan didn't find out until the last minute. He believes Marwan's warning gave the Israelis just enough time to mobilize the reserves and ultimately save the state of Israel.
Our army is based on 80% reserve forces. And he gave us the most important piece of information to bring the government of Israel and to force us, I call it, to call the reserve forces.
The reserves arrived in time for the Israelis to turn back the Syrian army on the Golan Heights after sustaining heavy casualties. But the Sinai was a different story. Marwan had told the Israelis that the war would begin at 6 p.m. It actually began 4 hours earlier. The Egyptians were able to break through the Israeli defenses, cross the Suez Canal, and take back part of the land it had lost 6 years earlier. And according to the Egyptians, Marwan's deception was crucial.
He gave us a number of hours before the Israelis started to mobilize and come to the front, and that was enough for us to cross the Suez Canal. That is a great achievement.
So you're talking about 4, 5, 6 hours extra.
Every hour here counts, and that was enough to make the difference.
After 3 weeks of fighting, a truce was declared, with the Egyptians still controlling the Suez and part of the Sinai. 6 years later, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat would reclaim all of it for Egypt by signing an historic peace treaty with the Israelis. For his part in the war, Sadat secretly awarded Marwan Egypt's highest medal in this never-before-seen ceremony.
He was able to hold conflicting loyalties at the same time, and that was his genius. That's what made him a perfect spy.
After the war, Marwan made a fortune selling Egyptian arms to Arab countries and reportedly forged intelligence ties to the CIA, the British, the Libyans, and the Italians. But his role in the Yom Kippur War remained a secret until a few years ago, when some of the details began to appear in print. Marwan told friends he was concerned about his safety.
In June of 2007, the mysterious Egyptian met a mysterious end when he fell or was thrown from the balcony of his 5th floor apartment here in the St. James district of London, not far from Buckingham Palace. Initially, the death was ruled a suicide, but today, Scotland Yard is investigating it as a murder.
You think somebody threw him off the balcony or forced him to jump?
I'm not sure what happened, but what I'm sure is that he was definitely killed 100%.
Marwan's son Gamal says his father was lame and too weak to hoist himself over the railing, and witnesses have reported seeing 2 dark-complected men on the balcony moments before his plunge. Missing from the apartment was the unfinished manuscript of Marwan's memoir.
The day my father was murdered, the book vanished, and all the tapes that my father dictated vanished as well.
Was your father an Israeli agent?
Definitely not.
You're sure of that?
Positive. My father was a patriot.
Did you talk to your father about this?
I asked him, what's going on? Okay? And he said, you know what? I'm a soldier. And in war, you have to do certain things as a soldier. Didn't make much sense at the time. Makes a lot of sense today.
Okay. Who would have a motive to kill him?
You know, my father's main job was Egypt. And the main concept is to fool the Israelis and win the war. God knows. They have the highest motive.
You don't think it was the Israelis?
Never on Sunday, never. It can't be. Why should they kill him? It's only a good reason for the Egyptians to do it once they discovered that he wasn't so good for them.
A few days after his death, the body of the man the Israelis claim is their greatest spy ever was flown to Egypt for a hero's funeral. Thousands of people turned out, including President Mubarak's son and high-ranking members of the Egyptian intelligence establishment. President Mubarak himself issued a statement saying that Marwan was patriotic and loyal to his country, but the time was not ripe to unveil those acts. So in the end, who did Ashraf Marwan really betray, and who finally killed him? If the truth wasn't buried with him, it is most likely buried somewhere in a top-secret vault.
It's in a lot of people's interests that the world never knows the answer to who killed Ashraf Marwan.
Because?
Because the damage he did and the deals that were made, I think intelligence communities all throughout the world want to keep secret.